Hello and welcome to Coast, Real Opinions, Real Women from Sea to Shining Sea. And tonight we will be covering Venezuela and socialism. So, what are we talking about tonight, ladies? What happened in the news?
Venezuela.
Well, we know right now the people are going out in mass to get their country back. They're fighting for their freedom, and they've got the president-elect who's there within their community that's out on the streets encouraging them, while Maduro is hiding in his headquarters.
They were literally mowing down people in the streets today with tanks.
They were. I saw that. And right after that started, they cut the live feed for CNN and BBC.
Yeah.
What had happened when they started mowing down all the people who were trying to fight for freedom.
Yeah, this is like good versus evil. This is epic good versus evil right now. This is a country that was like 5, 6, 7 years ago was thriving
in oil,
among other things. Mm-hmm.
They were like #1 globally in oil production, and they were an extremely rich country in less than just a decade ago.
Yeah.
And now they're in just the complete throes of outrights. I heard today on one of the news reports that each person is being granted 1 guaranteed meal a day.
That's horrific.
I saw, but this was a while ago, because this has been going on a while. This kind of just bubbled over tonight. But I remember seeing a father who was smuggling in powdered milk for his family. And he got in trouble for smuggling in powdered milk, like the equivalent of smuggling cocaine in this country.
Wow. I can't even imagine the sanitary conditions, the water. You can't even imagine, being sick or being unhealthy in any way, being limited in mobility and surviving like this. The weak are not going to make it. The disease, I can't even imagine. The hunger, and people are in survival mode.
Yeah, if you can only get 1 meal a day. Can you imagine? You can't just walk in and get, oh, my ear is bothering me. I have an ear infection. I just need to go to the doctor and get. That's not happening. You're not getting any of that. You're not getting toilet paper. You're not getting any of these things at all. Your basic things. You're fighting for your life every single day, for fresh water every single day.
Well, hopefully this will become a real republic, and they will get back to their prosperity and will set the mark for all the other socialism that's going on in Central and South America. If the Venezuelans can do this, then so can Mexico, which ultimately they're socialist and they're run by the cartel. Then you've got everything that goes on from down further. I mean, one of those things that always irritated me was the giving away of the Panama Canal.
Mm-hmm.
So then you work your way down, and there really are. I mean, tell me where there is prosperity in anywhere in Central or South America.
I think Chile is prosperous. I think Chile and Panama, and I think that's it.
Well, Panama's got the edge because they're charging the fees for the ships that go through.
And Panama has a wall.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
do
Panama,
they?
Yeah, they do.
Well, then how are they letting the people below them come through?
I imagine they're being helped.
I guess those people can't swim that moat called the Panama Canal.
Perhaps.
That might help.
We might have the same type of rafting system we have on this side, with the pulley and stuff. You never know how that's happening.
Well, Panama is investing a lot of money in widening the canal and deepening the canal because of the larger ships and the heavier payloads that are coming through. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but you can go on to YouTube and take a virtual tour where someone filmed their cruise ship going through from San Diego into the Gulf.
to see how big and
to
wide.
see, and it's exciting because you can almost touch the wall as you're going through, depending on the cruise ship. It's kind of creepy weird.
Hey.
Well, we were supposed to have a young lady on with us tonight who was unable to make it because she went to a rally to help support the people of Venezuela, and she had escaped from the country prior to all of this happening. She's a millennial, and hopefully we'll be following up with her. Her name is
Oh,
Cindy.
that's great.
So we'll be following up with her. She was unavailable tonight. We really wanted to have her on because she just has, I don't want to say it's a great story, but she has, a personal connection to being there, being from there, and she's currently living in Florida, and she still has family there. So she's completely connected to what's really going on and gives it that whole human element. Things sometimes seem very far away where we are here, and we're like, oh, that's really awful sometimes, but these people are fighting for their lives and freedom right now, and we fail to realize how many people we have already here that have immigrated from that country here so far,
Or have family remaining there and
there.
probably going out of their minds with worry about what's going on with their loved ones.
Yeah, when people talk about immigration, they mostly talk about Mexico because that's the bordering country, but they fail to mention the different countries that are involved in coming from that area, not just from Mexico, but traveling all the way up through that area. So
And the latest on that, if you want to get on my page, is the fact that people are taking ships and airplanes to get into Mexico from Cuba and the Middle East and all these different countries, Haiti, Colombia, but they're moving themselves into a position where they can walk the rest of the way.
I heard today there was a report from Dennis Miller Lynch. I don't know if you're familiar with him, when he gave the exact numbers of the known terrorists that are here and from different countries, such as Iran. There was a few from North Korea. There was a bunch that were from countries that have sworn to kill us, kind of.
This is how they're getting.
You talk about Dennis Michael Lynch.
Yes, DML, he's known as.
He's always got amazing information, and he vets everything out very carefully. You can repost anything he puts up.
Yeah, he's really good. But he came out and he was talking about, what the media is largely not telling you is we have a lot of terrorists in our country right now that we know of, that we've already said that we know exactly where you're from and who you are. And those are a lot of things that aren't being addressed. And one of the things we are inviting into the country, along with people who are used to being from socialist countries, is the illusion of what socialism will do to a capitalist country.
Well, and speaking of socialism, in my mind, what they try to put, what is being pushed in the schools and why so much of the younger people have been misled about socialism, it's through the utopian idea that it's some sort of sharing, taking from the rich and giving to the poor. But what it amounts to is that everybody's poor except for the people that are at the top who make the rules, and you get what they give you, and you don't get to say squat about it. So they own everything and you are just farmed and used. So through force or threat of force, everything that you would earn, they would tell you what's going to become of that. That is interesting. And I always thought it was like a pickpocket or a theft, because I think it's immoral, that socialism is equal to immoral, in that I don't believe that someone would have the right to take what I earn, that I've worked for, and give it to someone who has not.
Well, taxation that we have, I think, is already legal theft at this point, because we're funding things that we believe are morally reprehensible, endless wars, etc.
Trying to get that under control.
But we're taxed at 33%. So you can imagine what that 100% is. I always ask that question: at what percent do you consider it theft?
Well, I always preferred a blanket tax on everyone, whether you made $1 or whether you made $1 million, and you gave 10 to 15%, and would be willing to compromise to say put it into a sales tax.
Right.
So the state would get theirs, and so it encouraged savings, and it was only based on what you what you consumed.
I
And,
believe in a consumption tax.
and
That's
that
what I
way,
believe.
and that way you're paying the tax based on what you buy, but you're not taxed on what you save. And that encourages savings and interest and investment. But this is part of what we've evolved into, or that's why it's easy to start moving over that ledge into socialism.
But this is different. They're now taking 100%. They've got control of all the food. They've got control of all the medicine. They have no guns to rise up against a tyrannical government.
They disarmed the populace.
They're completely helpless. And now they're being run over by armored vehicles.
Well,
Plus,
and
socialism says you don't own anything. In other words, there's no businesses that are owned by you. You don't really own your home. You don't own your property. It's almost as if I fill my tank up with gas and someone comes over and says, gee, I'm a little low with my gas. They come over and siphon it and you have nothing to say about it.
it's almost like somebody saying you didn't build that.
Yeah, I remember someone saying that.
Yeah, it's almost like that, right?
Say, damn Skippy, I did.
So how do you think this is going to end? Do you think that the U.S. is going to I mean, I know that we've been providing aid to a certain point where they had to, and this again was weeks ago that I remember seeing this on the news when Maduro was stopping the aid that was coming through, and they were still trying to sneak it through a different way to get it to the people. But that's the only amount of real interference that we had tonight until President Trump tweeted about Cuba getting involved.
Right. And Cuba is being involved due to the encouragement of the Russians. They're not doing that by themselves.
So didn't we, are we imposing sanctions or something on Cuba now?
Already.
Yeah.
It's going to get worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those things where maybe we'll just expand Gitmo to the entire island.
Would that be okay?
Well, you've got Cuba sitting in the middle of the Gulf, which, back from the days of John F. Kennedy, you had the Cuban Missile Crisis, and we've had ongoing concerns with security in our Gulf, which is, a huge, vast area to try to defend. But
and there's another shining example of socialism. I mean, they're still driving the same cars they were driving during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
That is insane.
It's insane.
I had a friend that just went there. I should ferret out the video to show you. All the cars are from the 50s.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not joking. Legitimately.
Parts, like premium parts over in Cuba right now.
Well, when you look at those people who have risen to the top of these socialistic countries, you notice that none of them were able to make it on their own by virtue of their own skills and their hard work. They rose to their positions of authoritarianism by just seizing power in revolutions, in violence, and under socialism and communism, which is just its step system. Billions of people have died over that.
Well, that's what happened in Venezuela. I mean, Chavez died. Hugo Chavez died, and they handed the rate and just appointed Maduro president. There were no elections.
Well, the election was a scam, is what I understand. That they had a pseudo election, and it was just
later. It came later. Maduro was like appointed.
The second time they had an
second time, right? Well, wasn't that after they banned the candidates from running?
Well, there was Chavez first,
right?
Back in 1992.
It was already a piece of garbage.
So they've had a succession of very poor leaders. So this is not just since he's been in place. There's been a continuing decay of their economy. Now, what we've got, though, is, I mean, can you imagine the people who are running for office right now that are running socialism as their platform? Can you imagine telling them, putting your checkbook in their hands, and then they'll tell you what you can spend and what you deserve or should get?
No.
But they're selling this bill of goods but this is different. It's democratic socialism, and it just hasn't been done right.
It's the same. It's a siren song every time it comes out.
Absolutely.
It's just it's the same old poop wrapped in a different packaging with a different bow.
Mm-hmm.
And where we sit, we're always one generation. What was it Reagan said? We're only one generation. Because you get children or young people who are thinking that, oh, this sounds so fair, right? And
Mm-hmm.
yet there have been people who've gone up to somebody in schools and stuff and said, okay, what is your grade? And they'll say it's an A. And they say, okay, well, we're going to lower your grade to a C so we can give those 2 points to someone who's an F. And then you hear them saying, well, I don't want that. I'm doing all the work. So when you put it in terms that they're clearly affected intimately themselves, which may cost them in the long run getting to a better college or, getting a scholarship or something, they suddenly want to push back. And so our salvation will be to hopefully educate people. It's not what you think.
But they're already indoctrinated in the schools to believe that the government knows best. The government is Papa now.
Except that it takes the people that are involved in socialism are rebelling against the established government instead of going to a country where they feel more comfortable or where they think that ideology is going to work for them, giving them some level playing field, which means the level of common poor poverty. Go where you feel that your philosophy would be met. Don't try to turn my country upside down into what you're trying to remake it. Because you're talking collectivism versus individualism.
Well, this is now we're down to socialism versus capitalism.
And also nationalism versus globalism.
Yeah.
Correct. So, for instance, I always considered it the two O's. O on the left and O on the right. You have equal opportunity, but you don't get equal outcome. So you've got opportunity versus outcome. We can't guarantee even outcome is equal for all people, because when we're talking about equality, we're talking about equal opportunity to go to a court under justice. There's no such thing as social justice, it's just justice. But when you're talking about opportunity, people in this country can go as far as their capabilities will take them. And it's whether or not they want to put in the hard time, if they want to go ahead and they have the skills to get to that location. You have a variety of different people who have different skills and talents. Some are innate to them. You can't make someone an artist. Sometimes people are just gifted. Some people have a love of music. You can, I guess, force lessons on someone and they would still never have the passion for someone who has that gift. For the minute we're born, nobody is equal. Some are born with defects. Some are born, we're going to be shorter, taller, different genders, different abilities. It's just that our country allows people freedom to extend their skills and talents as they see them and their passions, to have more freedom than any other place in the whole world.
So some of these candidates here, I haven't heard it mentioned in the last couple of weeks, but they talk about that guaranteed minimum wage, or what they guarantee, like every month you would get a check whether you work or not.
Living wage bill that they're proposing in California.
They're proposing it in quite a few places, and they want, I think Chicago, they're talking about it.
They're calling it the guaranteed income.
Well, that's the new thing, because like New York banned plastic bags and California banned plastic straws. So now everybody's jumping on the bandwagon of, oh, this is the new legislation we're all banning. So now the new thing will be, all you have to do is look at other states that are doing it, just like that whole transgender bathroom ban and that whole thing. The new thing will now be the living wage proposal, which
is the living wage, right? The minimum living wage. And I believe, and I might be mistaken, but I believe Puerto Rico had that, and that is why Puerto Rico is one of the reasons why Puerto Rico is in the financial dumper.
Well, the fact that they are considered a territory. And they've had a lot of corruption with the leadership that are there, which came all to the surface after the hurricane. And we saw the money that was sent for relief was misused and started to vaporize.
I don't think a lot of people saw that. A lot of people, a lot did, but I don't think a lot of people did. They didn't. When they didn't see the pallets of things that were not making it to the people, that didn't get as much playtime as President Trump throwing a roll of paper towels into the audience, because apparently that was just horrendous that he would be playful at all. They completely overlooked there was not just pallets, there were all sorts of ships that were loaded. People who brought stuff privately, individually, it went to waste. A lot of it went to waste. And it is because of a corrupt government that is there. You're right.
Which is, again, is based on a more socialistic kind of environment. Yeah. It's wrapped in the fact that they vote because they're a territory, but their government doesn't have a whole lot of oversight by the United States.
It all begs the question, why should I get up and go to work in the morning if you don't have to, and you're going to get the same check that I'm going to get,
right.
You're going to get the same benefits that I'm going to get, and eventually nobody wants to go to work.
Or at least, I mean, it almost comes like when you and I did the voter integrity check, we went out to the typical government appointed job, appointed by people who don't have a passion for the job. And they were just going from meal to meal. We would get in there, and the first thing they were talking about when we got in the morning with our coffee was, well, what are we all doing for lunch? Mm-hmm. They weren't there to perform a job. They were there to get through the day for their pay. That's it. Just, I'm here to perform whatever they told me to, because I'm part of this whole machine that keeps the machine running for these people that makes them rich.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Socialism is biggest government, not just bigger government, it's biggest government. So you have...
It's hierarchy. It's a level of hierarchy that protects the top level at all costs.
And so they are choked with regulations. So, and enslavement. So as regulations go up, prosperity goes down. Mm-hmm. And when you begin to show, we were just showing recently where regulations are being unchained for America, and next thing you know, we've got a boom going on in the country. So it's almost like unleash the Kraken. It's just fantastic. Yeah. So yeah. When you want to try to make people equal under socialism, you have to go to the lowest common denominator. You can't bring people down. You have to bring the good people down, because you can't bring the morons up to the level of the ones that are making great contributions and are really being productive.
But they are getting the children now. They're getting the children, and socialism. I never thought in my lifetime I would see socialism not be a dirty word. Uh-huh. And candidates running on a socialist platform. But to see these children, how they are, I can't even, they have absolutely no desire for nice things unless somebody else is paying for them, which is not unusual in childhood. But I mean, I've had kids that, say to me, well, I don't really want to ever own anything. It's too much work. It's better if I just live somewhere that somebody else owns. They just have no desire for upward mobility.
Well, look at the whole small house and mini house.
Tiny houses, the tiny houses.
I looked at that, and they're trying to make it sound so delicious, but it's like living in a little box. And that's the same, and that's what they're doing, is they're doing especially in your area, they're doing the rack-em stack-em housing.
The whole premise of Agenda 21 was the abolition of private property rights. And that's how they accomplished this, by taking large swaths of the suburb areas and accumulating these large acreages and putting them into the pack-em and stack-em, being renters instead of owners.
One of the largest projects going on here on Long Island, and it's going to make national news, is that Heartland project.
Yeah.
And when I met with the developer, well, he was at a seminar, and
Barry Wolkoff.
Well, no, this was the son, David, and he and Steve Ballone, our county executive, was there, and he was talking about how proud they were that in this development they were going to make the rents so high you would have to share an apartment. There's no way anybody would be able to just afford one on their own, and that they would see to it that you would have only one parking space. And he said, and I remember it distinctly. I quote him. He said, "And if you want to have that second car, you're going to have to park it 2 miles away."
To shuttle it.
Forced and forced. Like I raised my hand and asked him. So basically, you're saying you're going to engineer what people can purchase, because if I can't drive and I can't leave the compound, he called it,
Right.
I have to shop in whatever supermarket you have.
Yep.
You're going to decide what kind of breakfast cereal I can buy. You're going to decide my standard of living. You're going to decide everything.
Work, play, sleep, and eat is how they build it. And it's the equivalent of 5 Empire State Buildings. It's 9,999 apartments.
So your choices are limited by virtue of the implementation by force.
Right. You will work where you live. They're eliminating the car factor. They want everyone to either work. They want you to work, eat, sleep, and play all in this same. They don't want you leaving. I don't think
walkable, bikeable. That's their whole thing. Walkable, bikeable.
Bikeable.
They want everybody riding bikes.
And it's a mini city in the middle of the Long Island Expressway on an island.
So they will limit then further, likely, your information. You won't need to know what's going on anywhere else.
Correct.
We already don't.
Just tune into our channel. They'll have their own channel. Tune into our channel.
It's like on a cruise ship. When you're on a cruise ship and they say, "Oh, you have to tune into here to find out what you'll be eating today."
Total isolation. Yeah, total isolation. And and when you're isolated, you lose your strength to work together as a nation.
It's like, you know how they talk about creeping Sharia? It's like creeping socialism.
Yeah.
They're just trying to numb you down to get you used to it to a certain point, to where this is the new norm for some people.
So even if you go into socialism thinking happy thoughts, you notice that there are no countries that ever get out of socialism unless it's revolutions and lots of death and lots of war, civil war.
It's never done nicely.
No. You can't just say, "Hey, we want to vote out socialism now." Oh no! Well, you just get shot. They take you to a wall, and you're in front of a firing squad.
People will have to be run over by armored cars.
Exactly.
Yeah, you get mowed down.
They're definitely getting a wake-up call after seeing what happened. They're starting to talk now and chatter. It's been going on a while. They've had some of the crews on the motorcycles in Venezuela who've been it hasn't gotten tonight. It definitely reached a peak, because what I understand is Maduro was on a plane and he was ready to vacate and give it up over to the president that they actually elected in their country, Gerardo, right? I hope I said his name right. But Maduro was on a plane, and apparently Russia intervened and stopped that from happening. And that's when all hell just broke loose.
Well, or someone thought was Russia. We don't know really what we're waiting.
This is true. This is just what's being put out there now.
This is the public version of the story.
Well, it's coming from Pompeo, who's our head of the State Department. So we would hope that he at least has some sort of viable information saying that's the information he's being given at this moment. Everything is really developed. I think we woke up this morning, we had a different topic we wanted to cover, and we said, no, this is really where the country's going right now, and we need to talk about this today. So this has been something that's been developing all day, and I don't think that this is going to be an end game topic for us. This is something we're probably going to revisit at another day.
What's interesting also is how the different networks are covering this.
Yes.
Because they're not like CNN. There's an uprising in Venezuela.
They weren't covering it before, just like they haven't been covering the yellow vests in Paris.
Exactly. So I wonder how many people know what's going on in Venezuela. I wonder how many people even know where Venezuela is.
Well, they hardly know what's going here on the American border. So
That's true. That's true. You're 100% correct.
so what you have is people like Anthony and Oscar Blue who go from their respective countries right to the border and are showing you what's going on.
You shared that one video of them climbing out of the sewer.
Oh my God, that was crazy.
There's just people like the clown car.
Like oozing out of the sewers.
Right. They're just jumping in the middle of traffic in the middle of El Paso, Texas. It's
Right.
Are they leaving, are they leaving their countries because socialism is so great and they want to come try democratic socialism?
No, they're invading us because capitalism is evil.
Well, what's happened is, and this is what we found out last week, that they are actually advertising to the central and southern South American countries that the border has been opened for them and all they need to do is get here and that America wants to help them and please come up.
So who's they?
They're told, come here, we have open arms for them, we have jobs for you, our economy is great and we need your help. And they think they're coming here.
But
at
who
our,
is they?
at our behest.
Their country, right?
Newspapers, television, radio, all this is being...
the ad. Who is they?
Oh, who do you think? What better way to infiltrate our country with people who are already used to a heavier version of socialism?
Russia. Soros, who else?
You just have to say the globalists.
China.
The Chinese, actually, if you look, you're going to find that there's a whole new generation now of Hispanic Chinese. They were working cheaper than the Mexicans and the South Americans. So they were exporting the Chinese labor to come into Mexico to do assembly on their assembly lines because they did a better job for less money. So the minute you go into a new country, you meet people, you marry, you become interracially involved with people, and next thing you know, you've got. This is why I laugh when people talk about, you're racist. No, because race doesn't include Hispanic. Hispanic is an ethnic origin,
right?
But you have the basic, the white Caucasian or the black, or you might have American Indian or Samoan, or
that's why they've resorted to basically you hate brown people. So anybody who's not white, black, everyone in the middle that encompasses all the not even self-perceived. I think the left has this habit of just creating victims. It's the party of victimization.
And we're not really white. We're putty color, and many of us, we have different complexions. Otherwise, look at, all you got to do is look at the makeup aisle, and there's all these rainbow shades of different cosmetics. Nobody's really that black and white.
I'm a 04, and my mascara still says that it's.
But they're putting emphasis on those things in order to divide us. I mean, that's just simply it's kind of like when you get a whole classroom of people when you're kids and you put the red vests and the blue vests on in the playground, and okay, you're one team and I'm the other, right? Just by virtue of the fact. What my favorite one with you, Jenny, was that thing 1 and thing 2, and one had a star on their belly.
Oh, that's the Dr. Seuss. There are no stars on thars.
I love it.
That's one of my favorite ones and then all of a sudden they take the stars off and then
that is exactly what it is in a nutshell. But when you're talking about socialism, and some people kind of forget this, even though this is kind of like a social war. When you have a regular battlefield war, whoever wins owns all the land. They own all the people. They own everything.
You just brought this up. I can't even believe you brought this up. I have one of Dr. Seuss's first books. Dr. Seuss Goes to War. Did you know that he originally did the World War II? And
how cool is that?
Dr. Seuss, he was originally a political cartoonist.
How cool is that?
All the, I'll have to do a show me with this one day, but I love Dr. Seuss. He's one of the most amazing, but this was all about that. When you think about it, Dr. Seuss Goes to War.
Where'd you find that?
Nazis. I got this from a friend.
Wow. Very cool.
From a friend. Yeah.
Very cool.
So every time you post that Dr. Seuss cartoon, I just laugh.
Yeah.
I never had seen that before you posted it.
We all bleed the same color red, you know? That's the way I feel about it. We're Americans, and I'm just so tired of being divided by color and race and sexual orientation. And the fact is when I meet you, I don't say, hello, nice to meet you, White Mary. What is your sexual orientation?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all divide. It's all these prompts to get neighbor to rat out neighbor, and it's so Hitlerian, if that's a word.
Yeah. Well, what was it 2 years ago when Governor Cuomo of New York proposed that whole basically rat out your neighbor if they have when they pass the New York Safe Act, and you rat out your neighbor and you get a reward. I forget how many counties do we have in New York? It's
62.
62, and 58 of them did not want the New York Safe Act, and yet it still passed in the middle of the night.
I believe 58 of them also voted against this governor, and we still have this governor.
It was unreal. That was the Astorino election. And that just shows you like how powerful when they make the projects that we were talking about, the Heartland Project, and they pack them and stack them and they teach them about, socialism and living in these commune type things, that density becomes a power block of voting. So you only need 3 or 4 highly dense. Basically, New York City, it doesn't matter how anybody else in New York votes, New York City controls every single one of our governor elections.
Well, and what's really great, all right, so he just to talk about Prince Andrew for a moment, he had put out all those commercials, nationwide, the Startup New York. People were seeing Startup New York commercials in Utah. Because he's the man who wants to be king. He'd like to be president or vice president or attorney general or whatever he wants to be. And he I'm going to say he lost his shit because The Simpsons did an episode about making fun of upstate New York. Like this, I guess this must have been maybe Sunday's episode of The Simpsons. I don't know. I'm a big Matt Groening fan, but Homer said, they drove through, they were going to Niagara Falls, and upstate New York was, crumbling infrastructure, a total shithole.
As it is.
And Cuomo lost it. I mean, he absolutely lost it because it's all about the emperor's new clothes. None of these people want anybody to peer behind the curtain and see the wizard. They don't want anybody knowing how bad it is, how bad these socialist policies are, and these left-wing liberal, theft, like you said, Emma, these pocket grabs. And what are we getting for all our money? We pay here on Long Island, our school taxes are absolutely insane. Absolutely. I know people paying $28,000, $30,000 a year in taxes, property taxes, and they come out with the top 300 school districts in the country, and we only have like one district. We should have the top 25 districts in the country for all the money we're paying into our schools.
So if you don't pay your school tax or your property tax, you lose your property.
They seize your property.
Right.
And I live in a 55 and over community. By covenant, you cannot have anybody living here under the age of 19. So we don't use the schools at all. And yet we pay the same property taxes that anybody else would, or school taxes.
That of your tax bill goes to your schools.
Yeah, it's taxation without representation.
Right.
Nobody in the 701 homes in my community, nobody can use the schools.
But what they do is they use that as a way to become a political lampoon when they use it, talking about, well, it's not the town, it's not the county that's high, it's the school, but it's their policies. Like when we took on the unaccompanied minor program, and we absorbed 8,000 minors just in a small area in Suffolk, and so now you have minors that are here with no one else, that are being placed into the school district in apartments with whatever, and being put it, you're paying for that. And that's where it becomes a very unfair burden. And that's where it becomes socialism, because we are now currently running programs, like you said, in advertising down in the Triangle area, that if you come here, we'll take care of you. But now Governor Cuomo's going out there and saying, we will take it further. We're going to give you free college for illegals, not for anybody who's already here, which would be true socialism, taking care of all of us first. No. None of you come first. You guys are wealthy enough. We're going to take care of people who aren't even here yet. We're still bringing them in. So we're going to pay for your college and your health care.
Okay, but that's even if you can speak English.
No, it doesn't matter. They enroll. No.
I'm just telling you. In other words, okay, it sounds, we're going to give all the illegals, we're going to give them free college. But you have to come to the standard of being able to take classes and passing classes in college. So
you don't have to take them in English.
Sorry?
You don't have to take them in English. They offer bilingual courses.
No, they do.
I don't know that they do in college.
Oh, Emma, they do. We have
absolutely
a large cost of what's happening in our school district is, in some school districts, we are only hiring bilingual teachers. And a large cost that's coming from that is that we are having to teach in this secondary language and then bring it over into the American language. A lot of the kids are ending up in the special ed program. So there's we're trying to figure this out too. The schools are doing the best they can with what they've been given, but a lot of the old laws that we have on the books are now being abused, such as we have to educate up until the age of 21. That's a special ed law. I got that verified when we did this a couple of weeks ago with Kathy. It is a special ed law that is now being bypassed through a back door with, let's say, Jose just arrived here at the age of 17. In order for Jose to seek asylum, he has to show that he's enrolled in school. He enrolls in school. He doesn't know any English yet. That's fine. He's applying for asylum. He's now enrolled in school with a freshman at 17, because that's where he fell on the educational plane. So now they are going to put him in a classroom for ESL and teach him how to speak English, along with teaching him and getting him caught up curriculum wise.
Doesn't that degrade the curriculum and the experience for the people who are in the classroom already?
Yes. And you're starting to see a lot of that socially. You're starting to see a lot of gang incidences. And there's a lot of districts that are also keeping up. They're barely keeping up, but also don't forget, they're getting funding based upon these numbers as well. So there's all that. There's a lot of money to be made with all of this.
No wonder there's so many people. Is there a New York exit going on?
There's a mass exodus. Yes. No, it's true.
Yes, absolutely. Well, they're leaving here, but they're leaving here because of the weather, not because of the cost of living or anything.
The snow.
It's the weather.
The last 3 years of the mildest snowstorms.
Yeah. So you're being sarcastic because 1/3 of the country gets snow in the climate that you've got.
Right.
No, that's what our governor said. It's not the cost of living that's driving people out of here. It's the weather. That's why they're leaving.
And the reason we're bringing New York into this on the tail of talking about socialism and Venezuela is because we are really starting to see those types of trends come here. When, like Mary was talking about, when we had the hurricane down in Puerto Rico, our governor went there for his photo op, and he took a lot of our highway patrolmen with him to help assist down there. Like Mary, as well as I do, a lot of the snowstorms. He gets out there and he takes the picture. You put it up every
time.
No coat, no hat, no gloves.
No coat, khakis, not a drop of anything on him. and he's pushing the car. He's
car
pushing-
in the snow for them.
This man is the embodiment of the emperor's new clothes.
Yeah.
And it's all about smoke and mirrors and making everything look nice and shiny and everything. But New York is crumbling. The whole state. That we got a brand new Tappan Zee Bridge. The brand new Tappan Zee Bridge is like already falling down.
Already falling down.
And what's so great is so he named that bridge after his father, Mario, the Mario Cuomo Bridge, and he called it the Mario Cuomo Bridge like up until the time it started crumbling, and suddenly now it's the Tappan Zee Bridge. Like,
didn't he come down to the border to check out the?
Yes,
he did, and they were threatened to arrest him.
There was a tent city here temporarily. There's a new tent city going up now in the Northeast that'll hold. There's 2 tents. I think each of them holds 500 people while they're being processed. But he was down here when there was just the juvenile tent city.
Yes.
In Tornello or whatever it was. And I think what ended up happening, and Jen, I think I sent you the article, he trespassed on Mexican soil.
Yes, I saw that. And he was threatened to be deported.
So he goes actually with his little caravan of group of people into Mexico to come back around to get to the tent city for a better position. And so he crosses without his passport or anything else. And he got caught by Border Patrol.
I would have given anything for him to spend like a half an hour in a Mexican prison.
I voted for that. We were all taking this little superficial vote online. Should he be jailed and should he?
Yeah, keep him.
But people need to be aware of him because he's going to be one of those people who sneaks up as a presidential candidate.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's why he postures. I mean, when he's showing those startup New York commercials throughout the nation because he wants to, we'll bring business to New York. No, he's campaigning on our dime.
Mary, Mary knows the numbers. How much did the program cost and how many jobs did he start up?
Oh God, I don't remember how much it cost. It was like, I don't remember how many billions of dollars, but it created 6 jobs or something like that. I think there was 6 jobs created.
Isn't he a socialist then? He is a socialist, right?
Oh, you know what the problem with him? This is the sad part about little Mario, about Prince Andrew, is he's not even left enough for the lefties in this state. That the reason why the left hates him so much is he's not left enough for them.
Yeah.
So he had to go lefter.
Did you mention? Are you mentioning Prince Andrew as in the royalty, the British?
His father was the king. And you have to understand that the progressives in New York are the worst threat to, when they talk about liberalism being the disease or being the biggest threat to America, progressives are the bringer of that.
But isn't this Prince Andrew the same one that was married to Fergie and now is?
No. This is Prince Andrew, who's married to Sarah Lee and Sandra Lee. Andrew Cuomo. We refer to him as the Prince or Il Duce, depending on which way.
You have to remember, his father was the governor before. His brother is Christopher Cuomo on CNN.
Yes.
Okay, it's good I've asked that question because anybody that's outside of New York would think you're talking about Prince Andrew, which is the one that now is going to be exposed as part of the Epstein Island thing.
Ah!
We're going to cover that one under a separate subject.
So I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, surely you know about, Nexium and this whole thing that's going on right now with the branding and the whole lot. And then that's
the whole part of this whole push towards globalism is this whole gamut that they've been running for quite a while with the border situation, which isn't just the United States. We're just the biggest consumer of human trafficking. It's coming from certain areas and areas that are very socialistic in their way. It's much easier to have children go missing, young women go missing from those types of states with human trafficking countries.
If you bring them in and they don't have any papers and you don't know, and they're not,
you don't require it.
they're just ghosts in here.
Right.
Now you see them, now you don't. I've always said, that's one of my little coin things, a barrel of acid, and who knew where they were? They're gone.
And I refer everyone to our first episode on immigration on our YouTube channel to get an update on some of those things that we covered that also relate to this subject matter.
Right. So here we've got a march towards socialism, which I agree with the president. We're not going socialistic. I think there's just too many good, solid people here in America who are thinking people who see the outcome would be a disaster. And then we get examples like the overthrow of what used to be some sort of constitutional parliamentarian environment in Europe, which obviously is on its way out. And
well, wasn't it just this last week that he ripped up the NATO arms treaty at the NRA speech?
Correct. That had not been ratified by the Senate yet.
Correct.
It was pending. And so what he just did is he withdrew the signature of the executive branch and told Congress to cancel it and sent an executive order notice to them.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I think my husband was telling me, and he's going to be so happy that I brought him up, that Wisconsin alone is the third largest army in the world.
Yeah. And you hear in hunting season, when they all get dressed up and go hunting, you hear very few incidents of anybody shooting somebody else's cow or whatnot. I mean, these are sharp guys. These are sharp guys.
My guns just went off all over the place without your dog.
I thought it was a deer, but it was your cow. Oh no, that doesn't happen very often.
The last time that happened was with Dick Cheney in the woods.
I'm gonna deal with Dick Cheney. I'm gonna backtrack a second here. So, because I had to go back and refresh the numbers. Startup New York cost $53 million to implement and created 76 jobs.
We both got the 6 right.
Yeah.
But still, it was 76 jobs, but it was like 6 companies.
Is that the same guy whose wife lost $850,000? Misplaced it?
Who was that?
One of the leaders.
Honest to God, he married a black lesbian. Didn't he? Right, Mary?
Who?
No, that's de Blasio. Sorry.
No. No, that's... Yeah, no.
Yes, and they had a bunch of kids that were all very diverse family. De Blasio and the Cuomo whole combination is very, very scary for New York because, as I said before, New York City basically decides all of our elections. And when you have that much of a progressive person in charge as the mayor in New York City who's married to somebody who's very into the social issues, this is what you're going to get. And you combine it with Cuomo and it's trouble ahead.
Yeah, Cuomo's with Sandra Lee.
Yes. Levy's ex.
Yes.
Thank you. I got that one.
Yes.
Levy had $1 million war chest, and they caught him on something, and he completely dropped it at the door and said, "Don't worry about you could keep all my $1 million. Just don't talk to me anymore. I'm going to go write a book over here in the corner." Yeah. And then Cuomo got his ex-wife. I don't know what happened there.
It's all what it is.
But in a socialistic country, you wouldn't know any of that stuff. They're ripping people off anyway. You just don't get to peer behind the curtain to even hear anything about budgets or...
Well, and how do we know that even we know? How do we even know what we know is what we know?
Well, because we research harder than the news, because we're not just reporting what the news is repeating, because we go hard and look at the actual paperwork. When you hear a law, Mary, I've seen you do it, that's passed by New York State that you're covering, you go to the books, you find out who's voting for it, and you understand the connections and the relationships that are made there. Not only in Venezuela or other socialistic countries is their food rationed, but their information is rationed too.
That's how I found out we had a hijab day in New York State.
Oh, that's right. A couple years. It was like 2 years ago.
And
National.
it was my birthday. There were like two people who read that law. The person who wrote it and me.
Right.
So they have in all bodies of legislature, they have these what they call sense resolutions, sense of the legislature, sense of the Senate. They're called sense resolutions, and they're all these little feel-good things, like it's National Plant a Tree Day, or
You were talking scents like in odors, which is why Biden was hoping people would use different perfume.
well,
So he could scratch and sniff and get what he
it all stinks. But so they pass these sense resolutions. Nobody actually reads them. It's all understood that it's a feel good thing, and we're just going to put my name on it. So in New York, they had this hijab day, and it was and if you read the piece of legislation, it basically said that the hijab was a garment that was meant to teach women to be obedient. And all of the New York State senators signed this thing. So I'm texting. I texted one specific senator who was like, holy crap, I didn't realize, I never read it, get my name off of it. I texted another senator, and he was like, wow, that's really funny, and didn't take his name off of it. There were women senators who didn't take their names off of it, and now it's an annual thing on my birthday about teaching women. And I'm sure they had a lot of laughs at my expense, talking about how I was flipping out over this, and maybe I need to wear one so I could learn to be obedient. But only one senator took his name off of it when he realized what it was. Only one. And he's not a senator anymore. He resigned.
And they were doing the whole American flag one, like this is somehow some sort of, coming out thing of liberation, when it's not. It's oppression. It's oppression, and they were celebrating it using liberty to celebrate it.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible.
So many questions, so many answers.
Yeah, and no answers in some cases.
Mm.
But they don't. They just slip stuff in. They must pass, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces of legislation every day in this country. Every day they make the government bigger. Every day they make your rights whittle away at your rights and make them less and less. And it's like the frog in the pot. You don't even realize it until all of a sudden one day you're saying, wait a minute, I used to be able to sip my drink out of a straw. I used to be able to bring my groceries home in a bag. I used to be able to whatever. I used to be able to park my car in front of my house. I used to be able to flush a toilet and have actual water. I mean, has anybody bought a toilet lately? I used to have I hoarded screwy light bulbs because they outlawed the incandescent bulbs.
And now they suck too. They said it's supposed to last forever. They go out.
And if you break one, you need to leave the room. You need a hazmat team.
Right.
If you break one of those light bulbs,
my grandchildren are going to have autism if one of those things falls in my living room and I don't properly dispose of it.
Yeah. And
my dog is going to need a PET system.
Get used to all of these things like the flow controls and the smart meters and everything meant in the name of saving the planet. I got news for you: the planet's not going anywhere, folks.
We are.
The planet's fine. The planet is just fine. And what you're seeing incrementally the implementation of tyranny. And tyranny is socialism. And it doesn't matter how hard you work or how productive you are, the money and the funding for their utopia is going to be taken out of your pocket if you allow this to be implemented in your country.
Mm-hmm.
There's no historical evidence anywhere where socialism implemented has been successful.
None.
Not anywhere.
Nope. They like to say Norway, but they have
their market. No, they're free market, and they do not have a minimum wage, by the way.
And they're also having other issues right now, so I wouldn't even point my fingers at Norway right now.
Right. And what they do, however, is they have very high taxes in order to implement their social programs.
Yeah, it's like a 65% tax rate.
More. It's much more than that.
Yeah, probably
And
more.
in those countries, you have a basically homogeneous population. It's not, there's no diversity in any of those countries. Everybody looks exactly the same.
How many people are moving to those countries?
Finland, Norway.
Nobody's storming the gates in those countries.
Yes, no, that's untrue. The Muslims
The
are.
Muslims are. They're coming up from the Middle East into those.
Correct.
Well,
Even
they're
George
being,
Clooney sold his home.
the latest on that is that they're being restricted to areas that are more or less like projects, the projects.
Mm.
And they are restricted from many of their programs, including the welfare and a number of things. And they're kept isolated in a way because, and deported. By the way, there's a big movement to get them deported.
But listen, they got a holy war going on in Europe right now. It's a whole different
Ball game than Venezuela.
Well, thank goodness there's an ocean. We can only fight one continent at a time.
Exactly.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to get caught up with our friend Cindy and see how things are going with
That would be great.
things.
So I challenge anybody out there that thinks socialism works. Get in touch with Jenny and make your case. Come on our show and make your case and show us proof positive how your utopian socialism works somewhere. And don't come up with, well, it hasn't been tried and it hasn't been tried correctly, because there's no such thing as correctly.
That's true.
Because there isn't a socialist government out there that thought they were doing it wrong either.
No.
Everybody thinks they're the ones who has we got it, but we're the ones who have it right.
And then there hasn't been a single leader.
Like I could try it. That's ego speaking.
That's somebody who's just out for power.
Right.
They have a different soapbox that they get on, and some have better personalities than others, or sell their soap in a different convincing manner. And unfortunately, by the time it gets implemented in those locations, it's too late to turn back.
It is too late. And it is getting late.
It is.
Mary's going to be very disappointed if we don't let everyone know that we're going to see them next Tuesday.
Absolutely.
So we'll try to be here next Tuesday, and we'll work on another state for everyone, as well as another topic. But I hope everyone has enjoyed tonight's Coast to Coast. Say good night, ladies.
Good night.
Good night, ladies.
Good night, ladies.